On page 69, we are dealing with an overview of verbs. The Semitic language was originally biliteral, meaning it had only two letters. That's why it said that Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam, Abram, spoke Arabic. He couldn't have spoken Hebrew because Hebrew has triliteral verbs. Triliteral verbs and biliteral precedes triliteral. There was first two, then there came three. And Aramaic, that was a language probably in the time of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam, also has triliteral verbs. And Syriac, that was a dialect of Aramaic, also had triliteral verbs. It doesn't have bilateral. So in the biblical anthropology, based on Arabic having bilateral verbs and many bilateral verbs, they conclude that Abram must have spoken Arabic and that Arabic was much older than Aramaic, Syriac, and Hebrew. And it would be useful to try to look at YouTube videos and to try to hear what Aramaic sounds like, or even to try to see what Aramaic looks like, and to hear what Hebrew sounds like, and to see what it looks like, and to hear what Syriac sounds like, and to see what it looks like. They are all Semitic languages. And we shouldn't confuse Aramaic, which is not a spoken language now, with Amharic. Amharic is a spoken language used by Ethiopians and Somalis, that part of the world, and it might have a spoken population of 4 million or so people who still speak Amharic. So it's not the ancient Aramaic language, even though it sounds very close to Arabic and the Semitic languages. Now, the doubled verb, here we have examples of the double verb like dalla, which is, you will come across it. He showed. Radda, you will come across that verb in the Quran. To restore or he restored. Sometimes we don't say he did, we just say, like fa'ala in a dictionary form, we don't say fa'ala, only he did, we just say to do, the verb to do. We say dalla, it means he did, or sorry, he showed, but we just say the verb to show. And we say radda, he restored, but we say the verb to restore. And these will also have 10 forms of derivatives. Yeah, it might not have 15, it might only have 10. Right. Madda is another example of a doubled verb, two letters. It means to stretch. Amun is a noun that consists only of two letters, an ain and a meme. It's an uncle, and and adun, to count, and darra, to harm or he harmed, and dhanna is to think or he thought. And those are examples of double. So there are many double verbs in Arabic. And if you look at the word Makkah, Bakka, words used in the Quran, and you can see they only consist of two letters. On page 70, we have the Hamzated verb. Hamza or Alif. Hamza and Alif is the same. And then with an initial Hamza or initial Hamza, or with the Alif or Hamza is at the beginning of the verb, like akhadha. It's triliteral, but here it starts with an Alif. Akhadha, to take, or he took. Akala, to eat, or he ate. And So this is an example of an hamzated verb where the hamza is at the beginning of the verb. Then you have an example of an hamzated verb, hamza in the middle, like sa'ala. You will come across that a lot to ask. To ask. That word is used a lot in the Quran. وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ, they ask you. Then you have an example of an hamzated verb where the hamza is at the end. And you know the first word of the Quran was iqra. Qara'a means to read, or he read. And bada'a is used a lot in the Quran and in hadith. And it's an hamzated verb, and you can see the hamza is at the end, and it means there to start, or he started. And the purpose of this is all just to give you an overview of what exists. If we have to conjugate every verb or every verb that we talk about, it will take 20 pages to conjugate the verb, to give examples of it. But now it sounds like you have lost out 20 pages every time. The reason why I don't talk about it in 20 pages is because I don't want to confuse anyone. But if you have at the back of your mind that this exists, and you see the examples in context in the Quran, when we translate the Quran, then you will see how it is used, how it has meaning for you, and it will be better to remember, easier to remember, and not as tedious and cumbersome as just studying the forms of verbs, which you might even forget. On page 71, now we talk about the weak verb. Qala is a verb that is used a lot. It means he said. But look at the construction of the verb. It's a qaf and then an alif in the middle and then the lam. And it's because of the alif in the middle, that's what makes it a weak verb. Think of alif and ya and waw as alif being fatha and ya being kasra and waw being dhamma. So the Arabs didn't have a fatha and a kasra and a dhamma. They had an alif at the top, and for a kasra they had a little ya at the bottom, and for a dhamma they still have a little waw at the top. Also think of alif as a case. It's used for the object of the verb. Think of ya as the kasra case, like when you have a preposition or when it's in the possessive case. And think of dhamma for the noun case, like when it's the doer of a verb, then the dhamma indicates that. So when you see a verb with an alif in the middle, it must have been added. Or you see a verb with a waw in the middle, it must have been added. Or you see a verb with a ya in the middle, or at the end, it must have been added. And that's why they call these weak verbs. It's not as sound as other verbs. And it must have come at a much later development, and possibly there was a qaf and a lam and there was no alif. So at qala, if you must go into grammatical studies and then to make it sound the way they have it now. As language develops, they made it qala. So you still have, in the case of qala, that is used very much, that when you want to command a person, qala, as he said, then you say qul. And like in the case of the hamzated verb sa'ala, where the alif is in the middle, if you want to command the person, you say sal. There you ignore the alif. And kana, kana, he was, in this example I have on the page here, this hollow verb, he was. You will see that a lot in the Quran. If you want to command the person, you say kun. You ignore that alif in the middle. And khafa, he feared. So we won't go into detail about why these are hollow verbs and weak verbs and the history of the construction of these verbs. It is just for you to have an overview, because people sometimes wonder about these things. Then you have double, treble, weak verbs like ja. I mean, there you have a jim, and then you have an alif and a hamza. It's almost like telling us there was only a jim, there was a one letter only, and the alif and the hamza was added. But here the word ja'a uh, appears a lot in the Quran, and sa'a, he despaired, and ja'a, he came, and then sha'a, he walls. You hear of insha'Allah, and that's a weak verb. So what was that? Was it only a sh? And sa'a, was it only s at the beginning? And ja, was it only j at the beginning? Yeah, Arabic is a very, very, very old language. We go to page 72. We are still talking about verbs, and here you have quadrilateral verbs. 4 letters. Oh, this must have been a very late development. Very late development. And here you have 4 letters. Zal, zala, to shake. In Surah Zilzal, إذا زلزلت الأرض زلزالها. Here زلزلة, to shake. And it has 4 letters in it. غر, غرة, to gargle. So there was a use to find a meaning for that, or to give, a unique expression to it. Wasa. You see the last chapter of the Quran. Wasa, to whisper, to whisper. But you must remember that the Quran is a modern book. It came late. It has these ancient words in it. But it came very late. And the Quran, the context of the Quran, the words of the Quran, the letters of the Quran are divine, all inspired by Allah. The Prophet ﷺ never spoke of himself. وَمَا يَنطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَى. We will do that verse. So the Quran has a divine context. The Hadith does not have a divine context, because in a Hadith book you see the context is the way the author placed it together. The context in the Quran is the way Allah told the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam where the verses should be. And the position, the number, everything there is the way Allah wanted it to be. So that's a divine context. There is no other book in our Islamic literature with a divine context other than the Quran. Then you have unorthodox verbs here like laysa. Laysa is a verb, but it means to be, is not. We will do a conjugation of laysa. Asa, perhaps, that's a verb. It it sounds like a preposition or like a particle, but it's a verb. Asa. And baqa, to remain, that's a verb. That's an unorthodox verb. And it might not sound unorthodox to us because Arabic is not our language, but for people who were used to the language, who had thousands of years of the language in him, it was unorthodox. It was very different. And you must remember that the Arabic that we have in the Quran, most of it, for people who study the Arabic, will tell you that is north. It comes from the northern part of Arabia and not the very southern part of Arabia. And then they have all these things of words that were used in certain regions that were not used in other regions. And that is why you wonder when you listen to the Asma'ul Husna, known as the 99 names. There are not only 99, there is more, but it's only called 99. Then you see some of the words have similar meanings. But it is that the one word, the word Ar-Rahman, referring to Allah, was used in a certain region and it wasn't used well in another region of the Arab world. So you have these different words with almost similar meanings, you know, not radically different meanings, and they all refer to Allah. And the same within the Quran. You might have words that have a similar meaning, and it's a different word because it was used in a different region of 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 the Arab world.
On page 73, how to use the dictionary. Well, you need to know the Arabic alphabet. And you would assume, because the Arabic alphabet starts from the right, and we write Arabic from the right, you would assume that the English dictionaries you have available, like that of Hans Ver, edited by Milton Cohen, and other dictionaries, and the popular one is the one by Hans Ver. You would assume that they will start from the right. For example, if you start looking for alif, first of the alphabet, a word starting with the alif, or a word starting with a ba, or a word starting with a ta, you would assume that you will page through that book from the right. No, that because it's an English book, it will start from the left, like a normal dictionary. And even the other dictionary, which is a contents book only for Quran vocabulary, that also starts from the left. So, for example, in my name, which is Farid, then I will look for a fa first. So I will start opening the book from the left and I will look for fa. And then I look what's next. Now I must look for a ra. I will look for fa ra. But I won't find fa and then ra immediately. I will find fa, alif, fa, ba, fa, ta, fa, sa, fa, jim, fa, ha, fa, kha, fa, dal, fa, dal, fa, ra. Okay. Now that I have fa, ra, and now I look for dal, because I look for the three letters. Fa, ra, dal, farada. That's the root word of my name. And then I will look for fa, ra, dal. And there I will see the different variations of fa, ra, dal. I might see the first form of the verb, the second form of the verb. They never usually show first form. They just take it as a root word. So it will have fa, ra, dal first. And then it will have some meanings next to it. And then it will show you other variations of the verb, perhaps the second form of the verb, like farrada with a shadda on, fa-ra with a shadda on and dal. And it will show you other variations, perhaps the third form of the verb, like faroda, fa, alif, rodal, and it might show you the fourth form of the verb, like afroda, like alif, farodal, and then it will show you how it's used, and it will show you the noun verb, the noun of the verb, like Farid is now a noun of a verb, and it will show you perhaps the meaning of Farida, the feminine, and you will see it will be different from Farid, and that's how you use the dictionary. So because of the root of my name is Faroda, then I will see the various forms of the verbs and nouns derived. And it's good to get used to using a dictionary, because then you can't just logically derive for yourself the meaning of a verb. It's better to look in the dictionary and to see how it is used. Page 74. For our purpose, we might mention the form of the verb, but we will avoid to talk in depth about verbs except to mention the common features in a pattern, to remember the meaning better, or to see why it could have that meaning. So get used to using a dictionary.